Hi everyone, welcome to the video tutorial of Python programming. So basically Python is a very powerful language used for web development, data science, creating software prototypes and so on. Fortunately Python is very easy to use syntax. So this makes Python an excellent language to learn to program for beginners. So we have so many programming languages. Already we have learned some programming languages like C language, so we have some knowledge regarding that language. But Python is such a language that if you don't have any kind of programming knowledge also, it's very easy to use syntax. So that's what Python become very popular for a lot of programming can be done with this language. So people are often using this language for different kind of purposes like web development and machine learning, artificial intelligence, writing algorithms. So many different types of work has been done already with this with this language. But still, there is a lot of things going on. A lot of development has been going on using this Python language. So this becomes a buzzword these days because often everywhere we often heard this word Python. So it's gained its importance and it's been using very often these days, especially in the era of artificial intelligence and machine learning. So this word has become, this language has become very popular. So in that regard, in this video tutorial, we are going to try to learn about some basics of Python programming. So let's start the tutorial by sharing the by saying what are the contents we are going to cover in this video. So these are the things we are going to cover in this video, like Python introduction, features of Python, where we use Python language, and history of a Python language, and how to install and set up the Python environment in our desktop systems, then Python programming development cycle, and some concepts related to input, processing and output. Okay, so let's not wasting the time and directly let's jump into the introduction of Python. So he is the person who is the creator of Python language. So basically this language has been developed in 1989 itself, okay, by this Dutch scientist. He's a Dutch programmer. Okay, he's from Netherlands. So his name is Van Rossum. In the year 1989, he developed this language, but it's gained its popularity and it has been introduced into the market in the year 1991. Okay, so this person is from actually Netherlands, and coming to his background, actually how this Python programming has been started is, say, during the Christmas holidays, this guy Van Rossum, he took a he developed a project like a hobby. Okay, he's actually a programmer. So in Christmas holidays, he tried to develop a small project where he decided to write an interpreter for the new scripting language. Okay, so previously he's working with some other languages like ABC and associate with Unix. Okay, on all these things. So later on, uh, he choose he developed a interpreter for the new scripting language. So later it becomes a Python. Okay, so the name also he chooses to put for this interpreter is as a Python is like some irrelevant manner. That means he's not intended to put that name, but as casually he just kept that name as Python. Okay, so in the 1999, he submitted this project to DARPA, which is a computer programming as a computer programming for everybody, in which he further defines his goals for Python. Okay, so that's about the basic introduction. So in the year 1989, it has been invented. Then later it comes into the market in the year 1991. But the most popularity has been gained for the Python programming is in these recent years, like 5 to 10 years. Not 5 to 10 years, but yeah, I can say that within 5 years. So because of this artificial intelligence and machine learning things has been coming to the picture, then people has been using this Python language for developing the code or for developing the algorithms which are useful for machine learning and artificial things. Okay, so this has been the introduction for Python. Okay, so he's the person responsible for creating this Python language. Next, coming to the features, it's a very powerful language and it has a lot of features, so that's why it got its popularity. So if we can summarize some of the features of the Python, we can say that it's very easy to learn and easy to understand. So normally as a layman or the people who don't have the programming knowledge also, they can directly come and learn the Python language without any prior knowledge of programming. So it's that easy, it's that simple programming language. Then the most important point or most important feature I can say it is Python is an interpreted programming language. So there is a difference between interpreted language and a compiled language. So basically C language we saw that it is a compiled programming language. That means when you write the program, then after that it is compiled. Compiled means each and every line is checked for errors. If at all any syntax errors, then again the compiler will notify that the compiler will tells you that in which line the error has occurred. So with that we can modify that line or modify the syntax and can again it is compiled and again it is executed. Whereas Python is an interpreted language, like each and every line is executed line by line, and if you do any modifications, automatically that will reflect. No need to again compile the program or no need to again rebuild the program. That is what the interpreted means. So we cannot we can simply modify the program how many times as I want, and simply we can that change will be affected in the code automatically. So that is what we call it as an interpreted programming language. Next one is obviously Python can be used as a cross-platform language. It can be used with any operating system. So we can combine this Python code with any other code also. So like that we can. It is a multi cross-platform programming language. Okay, I can use with any Windows, Linux, Mac OS, etc. Then the most important thing, Python has got its popularity due to this. It is a free and open source programming language. So there is a community called Python community, where open source, obviously we know that open source means anyone can uh, contribute his programming knowledge or his programming skills or the technical skills to the community. So like we have this Python developed with some basic version, then so many other people have contributed to that Python. So then slowly some new packages has been added. Like that, Python has got its structure. So which is a very important one, that is called the open source programming language. Then Python is object oriented, procedural and functional programming language. So we can write a code in functions, write code in, we can make use of object oriented concepts. Okay, so all these things which are there in Java, C++, that is also there in Python, and like C and C programming, it's a procedural language. So its concepts also there in the Python. So it's like we can say that hybrid language. All the concepts of previous programming languages has been embedded in Python. Next, Python is a multi-purpose programming language. We can use for a lot of purposes. So within short period, we can also learn about where these language has been used, or in which areas it is being used. Okay, so the next feature, Python is a high-level programming language. So obviously we know that Python is a high-level language. Like we can simply write the normal English statements. So by seeing that also we can easily understand. So the high-level language programming means generally by seeing the content of the language or by seeing the statements, we have to understand easily what that statement means. So that is a high-level programming language. Next, as I said, Python has a huge community to get help all over the globe. So if you have any doubts or any problem or any program where you have been stuck with, so you can post it in some blogs or Python communities. So you can get answer for those also. Next thing is Python has a large ecosystem of libraries, frameworks, and tools to work with. So as I said, Python is contributed from different programmers all over the globe. So they have used for multiple purposes, and they have been added so many libraries to the Python, so that with that libraries we can develop some different kinds of applications, and we can do a lot of stuff. Okay, so these are all some basic features of Python. Next, where we use Python. So these are the areas. I have just listed some of the important areas, but Python can be used in a lot more things. So I can say that data analysis. So especially in these COVID-19 situations, so a lot of things has been happening. So many cases has been registered in so many different cities, and we can analyze which group of people has been affected more with COVID-19, and which age group, and whether they are male or female. So a lot of analysis can be done with these, especially in these kind of situations. So in these situations, we can use this Python language for the analysis part. Then comes with artificial intelligence, machine learning. Okay, so these are the different things like creating artificial intelligence, so making of robots, machine learning algorithms. So like in these areas also Python is extensively used. And next, some basic mobile apps. Python can also be used to develop mobile apps, and some desktop apps, web apps, okay, automation things, hacking purposes, and a lot more. So all these areas Python has been used, and it is being used. So these are the different areas where we can use this Python programming language. Next comes to history of Python. Like, see, as I told you that in 1991, officially Python has been released into the market. Then after the first basic version has been released in 1994, which is 1.0. Then after in 1997, it has been upgraded to 1.5, then 1.6. So the list continues. There are so many versions. Each and every year, some people have contributed to that particular versions. Then the latest version available, that is Python 3.8.5. Okay, so this is the latest version, latest release from the Python, which is in July 2020. The latest version, that is what I am telling you, is 3.8.5, which is released in July 2020. Now, how to set up this Python environment? Like how this software is available? Is it like a Turbo C file, or is it like an editor? So it is available with the Python website. It is available in Python website. Like anyone who wants to install this Python IDE, actually it is an IDE, integrated development environment. Okay, so there is a screen where you can type your commands and you can get the results. Okay, so if you want to install the Python in your computer, then open the Google Chrome or any browser and type this website, www.python.org/downloads. Okay, so I can show you like when you open a browser, so when you open a browser, if you type python.org, in about section or in download section, you can able to see this download for Windows. Okay, so the latest version is Python 3.8.5, which is available. So I can click on this. Automatically the Python file will be downloaded to your desktop. Okay, so after that okay, once it is downloaded in your computer, then you need to run that setup file. It will ask you some permissions. It will ask you for some permissions from the Windows. If you accept those permissions, then you will get a screen like this. So install now and customize options, and then you have a small two checkboxes in the bottom end of this screen, which is install launcher for all users, and second one is add Python 3.7 to path. So this one is very important. So you have to check this box. Make sure that you need to check this box and click on install now to start the installation. Okay, then you will get the screen like this, and where that setup process has been progress. So after the successful completion of the installation, then you will get a screen like this. So where it says that setup was successful, and once after the installation has been done, you can directly go to the menu section and there you can see IDLE Python. Okay, so there is a icon called Python IDLE or IDLE Python. So if you click on that, then you can able to see a screen like this. So I have done this in my computer. So this is called a Python shell. Basically, this is called as a Python shell. So in this Python shell, first it will display the version, the latest version that has been that we are using. Next, you will get something like this. Okay. So this screen is called as a Python shell, where you can type your commands and they automatically displayed in this console itself. There is no separate console for displaying the outputs. You can directly view your output in this console itself. Okay, so I want to simply show a small example how easy the language is. Okay, so if you want to print something, then you can simply write a function called print, then open the brace, then give the quotations. If you want to type something, you can easily type whatever the thing you want and close the bracket and click on enter. It will simply print whatever you have written in that brackets. Okay, because the print function is obviously, we know that in C language we have learned about what is a state, what is the function print do. So what it do is it will simply print the thing. And the most important thing and most interesting thing is here it don't bother about the data types you're working with. Suppose in general C language, I have to mention the data type on which I am working. Suppose I want to declare, I want to use a value 10. So the 10 is of integer type because it's a numerical. So it will says that it is an integer type. So I have to mention int a is equal to 10. I have to mention that. But here there is nothing like. So if I want to add numbers, suppose if I want to perform 1 plus 8 into 5. So it is an expression which contains some values. 1 is there and 8 is there. I am adding those two numbers, and then again combinedly the output of 1 plus 8 I am multiplying with 5. Okay, so I am not mentioning any data type here. 1 is of what type, variable 8 is of what type, 5 is of what type. I am not mentioning anything here. But simply if I write like this and click on enter, it will give the answer as 45. So I am not telling the Python that 1 is of which type, 8 is of which type, nothing. Okay, so what happens here is Python automatically reads the kind of data value I am entering. That is what the beauty of Python. So that is the beauty of this language. Okay, so like this we can do so many things. The programming will be very easy. So that's why it has been using in so many applications now. The code is very simple, easy to understand, and we can write in simple steps. With the help of different packages, we can write programming in simple steps. Okay, so this is the console, or this is the environment where we can work Python commands. Okay, so let's go back to the presentation. So okay, so this is the console where we can work with Python commands. Next, as I said, that is an IDE. Whatever we have seen now, it's an IDE. IDE means the area where we can type our programs, commands, and see the outputs and results. Okay, but there are so many different IDEs available for writing programs, especially in Python. So there are so many IDEs available. As you can see on the screen, there is a IDE called PyCharm, Spider, Jupyter, Tony, Atom, all these different IDEs. Okay, so with these also we can download these softwares, and the console will be available for that, where we can type our commands and see the results. Okay, but might be it's not like the previous thing I have shown you. Like the previous in the previous slide I have shown you some white screen. It's not same as that white screen in these IDEs. It might be some different. Okay, but the basic working of the Python programming or the Python interpreter is same. Okay, so once you download these softwares and installed these softwares, we can easily navigate and we can easily understand. There is nothing rocket science behind this. We can easily understand how to use these softwares and how to use these IDEs. Okay, so the most popular thing is PyCharm, Spider, and Jupyter. So these are the three IDEs also which are commonly used. Hope you understand. Okay, so these are the IDEs available at different websites where we can download these IDEs and start working with the Python programming. Okay, next, the most important thing is Python program development cycle. See, basically the traditional development life cycle of any process, of any program. See, generally we need to understand the basic life cycle of a program, or we can say software. What it is first of all we gather the requirements from the customer. Then after that we prepare a SRS document. Then after that we'll design the software things like software elements, or we design the basic structure, how the software is going to work. Then after we write the coding part. Then again we test the software. If we have any modifications, again we modify those contents. And finally we deploy the system, we deploy the application. After deploying the application, if a customer wants any changes to the software, again we need to change the software, then again compile that software, again rebuild that software, and again we need to give it back to the customer. That means again we have to deploy the system. So that is what happening in the traditional development of a software program. What it is, you can see in this diagram. First of all, we start the application, then we test for the behavior of the application, then stop the application, edit the program, recompile the code, relink the executable. That means already the program or the software has been developed and we have given that to the customer. The customer start using that application. He will test the behavior of the application. He will check whether it is working fine or not. If at all he finds something wrong in that or something he need to change, again we need to edit the program code, again recompile it, again rebuild the program, then again start the application. That is what that is what we do in the normal traditional development of a program. Whereas in Python, whenever you do any modifications, that will automatically reflect in the output. Suppose as an example, if you want, you have written a program. In the program, we have two buttons. Both the buttons are in red color. Okay. Now, after starting the application, you find that you need to change the color of the button as a green. Instead of red, you need to change the color of button as a red. So we can directly go to the code and change it as red to green. Then we can see the output there itself. No need to again recompile that, no need to again rebuild that software or rebuild that code. That is the beauty of a Python programming, because it is an interpreted based. Okay, so interpreted based, so that's the reason why it is gaining so much of popularity. Whenever you do any modifications to the program, automatically that modification will be reflected in the output. Okay, so that's what he has been given. The Python's development lifecycle, how it do is, we'll start the application, then test for the behavior, stop the application. If you want to edit the program code, then we can edit the program. Then again, simply start. No need to again recompile and relink. As in the traditional development cycle, there are two more sections. Like whenever you modify the code of the program, you need to again recompile it and again relink with the executable files. Whereas in Python development cycle, no need to do that. If you do the modification, automatically the changes will be reflected in the output. That is what I am trying to tell you. Okay. So similarly, there is some other thing called module reloading. Okay, if anyone has contributed some other library files to your program, then we can simply make use of those library files in my program. So it's as simple as that. We can simply import those library files into my application directly. Okay, so this is called as a Python program development cycle. So the basic thing you need to understand is, I have written something on the left hand side of the screen. There is no compile or link steps. That is the first and foremost point you need to understand from this program development lifecycle of a Python. There is no compilation. Any time or how many number of times you have modified the code, no need to compile the program. The modifications will be directly reflected on the output. Okay, so Python programs simply import modules at runtime and use the objects as they contain. So that's what I have said. If any other library files you want to make use into your program, we can simply do it by writing the import statements. Directly we can use those library files into my program. Okay, and the next one is, Python programs run immediately after changes are made. So that's what I have continuously telling while I am explaining this program development cycle. No need to compile the programs. Whenever you do any modifications on the code, it will be directly reflected and we can observe the changes in the output. Okay, so this is about the Python program development lifecycle. Next, so this is what happens behind the screen. Like when you write the code in Python, there is something happened behind the screen and our imagination. The only thing we see is output. Whenever we write the code, we execute the code, then we try to observe the output. Okay, but before output, there is something, or there is a lot of things happening behind the system or behind the Python. Okay, so what it is, so you can see from the example, you can see from the screen. So I have written the Python code, then that Python code will be checked for syntax errors. That means according to the syntax of the Python, you have written the code or not. If it is okay, if it is with if the syntax is correct and the program has no syntax errors, then automatically that program will be converted into bytecode. Bytecode means the code or the instructions, whatever we have written in the Python language, which are in high level language, are converted into some machine understandable language, which is called as a bytecode. And that bytecode will be processed by Python virtual machine. Okay, so this is the main part of the program where our program will be processed, or our code will be processed. Python virtual machine. Okay, so after executing that means we can say this is an execution. Interpreter has been done, then executing the program. So while executing, if the program requires any input from the user, then he will provide the user, then he will provide the inputs. Then after getting the inputs, the PVM, that means Python virtual machine, will give the results for you. If at all there's something wrong in the program other than the syntax errors, then that will be encountered as an error, and that errors will be observed by the user. Okay, so this is how Python works behind the screen. And the last concept of this video tutorial, that is called input processing and output. See, basically any program, whatever the programming language we are learning, the basic intent is we, as a user, we provide the input for a program, then the program will do something with that input, that is called as processing, and finally it will give the output. So in any programming language, whether it is C or C++ or Python or any other language, the basic concept is there is a code. For that code, we provide some input. Something will be happened inside the code or inside the programming, which is called as a processing. Then finally we will get the output. Okay. So here in terminal based interactive programs, see the second point. Terminal based interactive programs. That means these kind of programming languages like Python and other kind of programming languages. What is the basic input source? It is from keyboard. We have to give the input from the keyboard. Then what is the basic output destination? We will see the results on the screen, which is called as a terminal display. Okay, so we understood these 2 points. Input is the keyboard. That means we have to give the values or anything from the keyboard. Okay, there might be some different kinds where we can use our input as a input device as a mouse. That means navigation or clicking on something. Okay, dragging something, clicking on something. Okay, these are all interactive based interactive based input devices. So, but as if now, as Python is concerned, we are giving input from the keyboard. Then the output is we display the output, or we get the output onto the terminal display. That means wherever the program is executed, there itself in the computer screen itself we can see the output. Okay, so in between there is something happening which is called as a processing. What is that processing is? It is evaluating the items. That means whatever the code you have written, you have done some calculations in that, you have written some expressions, calculations, or if conditions, or so many things you have written in that program. So all these can be processed. That can be done with the Python shell. So Python shell itself is a program. It inputs or Python expressions, and its processing evaluates these items, and outputs are the results displayed in the shell. So obviously the shell is this white screen, whatever I have shown you earlier. This white screen is everything. Okay, where it will receive the input from here, it will process your code, evaluate the items, and it will display the results itself. So everything will be happened in this same section. Okay, but in some other IDEs, we have some separate sections for giving the input and separate sections for getting the outputs also. Okay, so that is possible with the PyCharm and Spider, where total screen will be divided into some different parts, where you have to write the code in some part of the program, and your outputs will be displayed on the other part of the screen. Okay, sorry, screen. It is screen, not the program. So the total screen will be divided into some 2 or 3 parts, where one part will be used to write the program, and other part will be used to see the results. That is what happening in the program. Okay, so like that. The Python shell acts as a programming, as a taking an input and processing the results and giving the outputs. Okay, so these are the basics of the Python programming language. Okay, so let's again I'll summarize the concepts. Like I have told you that introduction of the Python. So he is the person who is responsible for creating the Python programming language, which is very popular in these 5 to 10 years. The basic version has been released with 1994. That is Python 1.0, and the latest version available is 3.8.5. We have some different features of Python, where it is very easy to understand, interpreted language, multi-purpose language. Okay, so all these different kinds of features available with the Python programming, and we have seen where it has been used and how it has been used, like these data analysis field, artificial intelligence, machine learning. Okay, so mobile apps, desktop apps. So we can do a lot of things with this programming language. So that's why it is so much popular these days. And then we have seen the history of the Python, where all the versions, different versions available. Then I have shown you how to set up the environment, like how to install the software, Python software, and how to get started with the Python IDE. Okay, so and these are some different IDEs available apart from the Python. That is Python IDE, PyCharm, Spider, Jupyter. All these IDEs can also be used. Next, we have seen the program development lifecycle of a Python. The basic point we need to understand here is no need to compile the program whenever we do any modifications to our program. It will be directly executed, and that changes will be reflected in the output. Next, we have seen how the Python works behind the screen. So when you written the code, that code will be checked for the syntax errors, and after that, that code will be converted into a bytecode, which is the machine understandable language. Then after that, your program will be processed by PVM, which is a Python virtual machine, where if any user inputs has to be given, that should be given at that point. Then you will get the outputs. Next, so this is the basic thing we have seen, like how each and every software is developed. Like input we have to given, then the processing will be happened and the output will be generated. Similarly, with the case of Python also, you have to give the inputs, then something will be done in between, which is called as a processing. Then the output will be displayed. But all the thing will be done with the Python shell itself. There itself we need to give the inputs. There itself the processing is happening, and there itself the results are displayed. Okay. So this is the end of the session. Thank you.